ahead, please.
Welcome to the Board of Education Audit Committee meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. If we could have a roll call, Ms. Yeager.
Sarah Brownstein, Tammy Coleman, Josefina Dominguez,
Here.
Scott Elder.
I'm here. I wonder if Miss Apodaca is here in lieu of Miss Coleman.
Actually, Ms. Coleman is on the line. I just don't hear her.
Very good.
Sorry, guys, I'm here. I was just a little bit late getting on.
All right.
This
Danielle
is Tammy.
Here.
Courtney Jackson,
Here.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Here.
Barbara Peterson,
Here.
Heather Snenden. I know that she's here too.
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero
Here.
and Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Here. The audit committee meetings will be hybrid meetings with community members having a choice to attend in person at the John Milne Community Boardroom or virtually at www.aps.edu. Presenters, though, will attend virtually. You may participate by attending the meeting in person, watching the live stream of upcoming meetings by clicking on the live meeting stream button on the main board page at www.aps.edu, emailing input, comments, and questions to board members at boarded@aps.edu, or calling at 505-880-3729. And our next item for consideration and action is adoption of the August 24th Audit Committee meeting agenda.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second. This is Barbara. Okay, Ms. Yeager, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Sarah Brownstein, Tammy Coleman, Tammy Coleman. Okay, Josefina Dominguez
Here. Or yeah.
Yes.
Scott Elder,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Heather Snenden,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
and Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Thank you. Here, yes. I was going to do here too. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so our agenda item, the status update of Albuquerque Public Schools external audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. And the Executive Director of Accounting, Mark Turnbull, and Sheila Herrera, the Senior Manager at Moss Adams. You have the floor.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Elder, this discussion brief is a status update on the district's external audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. For this update, I will now turn the meeting over to Sheila Herrera with Moss Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Members of the committee, I will give you an update. We have started the Albuquerque Public School audit for fiscal year 2022, sorry. We have done all the planning work along with some of the state compliance, some of the control activity level testing at this point. We will be coming back out to complete the remainder of the district audit in September, middle of September, once the district is ready for us to come out and complete the audit. We have started and are about halfway through the Albuquerque Public School Foundation audit, along with 7 of the charter school component unit audits. We have the rest of them scheduled to begin starting next week through the end of September to complete the audit by the November 15th deadline.
Okay, I said it was going to be short and sweet. So if nobody has any questions, we could have a meeting done in like
Record.
4 minutes. So if anybody has any questions, I'll go to, if Ms. Snedden, anybody that's out there in the virtual world has any questions, please
I don't have
ask.
any questions.
Do you have a question?
No, I don't.
All right. If anybody in the boardroom has a question, please let me know. Okay. Honest. This is awesome. The next audit committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 at 5 p.m. in the John Milne Community Boardroom of the Alice and Bruce King Educational Complex at 6400 Uptown Boulevard Northeast, or virtually at www.aps.edu. Thank you to all the audit committee members who are here. We appreciate it. And this meeting is adjourned and will be followed by the finance committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Brenda, are we ready?
Give us,
Okay. Out of the chute. I'm ready. Let's roll.
okay, with that, Madam Chair, we are ready.
Okay. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Here.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Here.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Here.
Barbara Peterson,
Here.
Josefina Dominguez,
Should I say here or yes?
here, Courtney Jackson,
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Here. Finance Committee meetings will be hybrid meetings with community members having a choice to attend in person at the John Milne Community Boardroom or virtually at www.aps.edu. Presenters will attend virtually. You may participate by attending the meeting in person, watching the live stream of upcoming meetings by clicking on the live meeting stream button on the main board page at www.aps.edu, emailing input, comments, and questions to board members at boarded@aps.edu, or by calling 505-880-3729. Our first item for consideration and action is item 3, which is adoption of the August 24th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting agenda. If I could have a motion, please.
I move for adoption.
I'll second. This is Danielle.
Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is item A, consideration for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for pharmacy services. This is a discussion action item, and Ms. Apodaca, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Elder, the action memo for consideration is approval to purchase pharmacy services. This purchase is in accordance with the State of New Mexico Procurement Code and the APS procurement policy. The selected vendor, Express Scripts, was successful through the RFP process, and this purchase is estimated at $61.6 million for a 4-year contract. In your packet, you will find the board report that has the vendor information, also a link to the request for proposal, and also a table of cost. This vendor is our current provider, and we do have information on the previous spend and the future spend. And we do have Ms. Atencio and Mr. Torgerson available for any questions, and also Mr. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name.
McCachran, Scott McCachran from Siegel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. I will go ahead and open it up to the board to see if we have any questions or comments.
And Madam Chair, I would just say, I thought this was a good thing because instead of the total net cost, it went down from 78 million to 61 million. So that's a positive. I would move for approval.
I'll second. Yolanda? Thank you. And if we don't have any further discussion, Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Could I just ask a quick question of an explanation of why it went down? We're happy it did.
We're happy as well, and I'll turn it over to Siegel, who you're probably familiar with as our prior Aon type consultants, and they were part of the RFP for NIMSIA and part of the IBAC. And so with that, Nura or Scott, if you want to speak to that, would be great.
Yeah, I think so. Scott led our financial analysis, and he'd be able to kind of share the specifics of which components had improved with this bid from Express Scripts as compared to your prior agreement. So Scott, can you talk through those areas, please?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. So with pharmacy pricing, the last couple of years, the manufacturer rebates have increased substantially. And as part of this bid through the IBAC, Express Scripts offered substantial increases in the manufacturer rebates portion. I'm on page 5 of the meeting packet, and you'll see the second red line in the middle of the table there. The rebates increased from 40 million to 55 million. So the vast majority of the savings you're realizing is those increased rebates from the manufacturer. So that's what contributed to the cost reduction.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion? So we do have a motion on the floor. So Ms. Yeager, if I could have a roll call, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Our next item for consideration and action is item B, which is consideration for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for student insurance and catastrophic coverages. This is also a discussion action item, and Ms. Apodaca, I will turn it back over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, Board Member, Superintendent Elder, the next action memo for consideration is approval to purchase the student insurance and catastrophic coverage. This purchase is in accordance with the State of New Mexico Procurement Code and APS procurement policy. The selected vendor was selected through the RFP process, and the expenditures are estimated to be $548,000. And in your packet, you will see a copy of the request for proposal. We have Mr. Brown, I believe, and Mr. Torgerson and Mr. Schwartz for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. I will go ahead and once again open it up to see if we have any further discussion or questions on this.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can you just remind us what the previous spend was?
Okay, I don't have the specific amount, Board Member Aragon, but I have Mr. Schwartz here, and it has gone down because of the enrollment.
That's correct. We did see a slight increase simply due to the participation in athletics go up. So we've seen a 3-year trend of athletics rising in participation, which the rate has remained static over the last 3 years, even amongst a school shooting and a bus rollover accident. But at the same time, we've seen an increase in participation in sports. So that's any increase you would see in the total premium comes strictly from participation in sports.
We would see a reduction in other lines of coverage relative to student enrollment. But that price point is based on our current student enrollment for that line of coverage.
Okay, if you could just, Ms. Apodaca, just get us the previous spend whenever and just send to us, that'd be great. And then the only other question I have is the selected vendor. I know that they have to disclose campaign contributions during the time frame delineated. So have they already done that? Was that all part of the process?
Go ahead, sorry.
Madam Chair, Board Member, Superintendent Elder, that is usually a form within the request for proposal that is submitted with their offer.
So yes, it was.
This actually went through NIPSIA, so I can follow up with them.
Okay, that'd be great also. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further comments or discussion, questions, excuse me?
I'll move for approval. I'll second. This is Barbara.
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, if I could have a roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Thank you all. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. So our next item for consideration and action is item C, consideration for approval of budget adjustments to existing grant budget for the following funds. And this is also a discussion action item. And Ms. Marin, our Senior Director of Grant Management, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the board, presenting for your consideration of approval the budget adjustments for grants for the month of August 2024. We have 3 carryover amounts from the prior fiscal year to be implemented throughout the current school year. I did not see anything out of the ordinary, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marin. I will go ahead and open it up to the board. Does anyone have any questions?
I do, but I want to let somebody else go first.
That's okay. Go ahead. Board Member Miralta.
So on the, and this would probably go to Dr. Muir, on the DOH COVID-19 funding, and it has for salary, stipends, and benefits. So do you have an idea about how many FTE that is? And then I also saw that 100% of it isn't going to salary, because I had also seen, I think on page 108, that there was also some supplies. Is that correct?
Board Member Aragon, I will defer this question to Vicky Price.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. So this program, this DOH funding is for this year, is entirely for extended contracts for counselors and social workers. And with this amount of money for a 0.1 stipend, we should be able to do about 85 people as part of this. Last year, a portion of that funding went for other supplies for COVID supplies, but this year it's all going towards stipends. And what it enables them to do is for 3 hours and 15 minutes a week, they have additional time on their workday so they can see more students. And as part of this grant and this funding, we want them to fill that time with seeing students. So 100% of it needs to be seeing students who need additional support, especially around COVID-related issues that we're seeing in the schools. Last year, we rolled it out. There were 65 people that were part of the program last year. It's on a volunteer basis because it's a stipend or a extended contract. People volunteer to be part of it. And then we have a screening process as well. But we were able to see about 5,000 additional students last year through this program just from January until May. So we felt like it was a really good program, and this year we'll even be able to see more students because we can fund more people.
And that's wonderful. That's something that we know is really needed. So is that, Ms. Price, is it something that is voluntary?
Yes, it is. It is voluntary, and people apply. There's a application process. So they apply, and we try and only award it to one person per school, but it just depends how many people volunteer. And last year, all 65 people that volunteered, we were able to fund them.
Okay, good thing. So then the general supplies and materials that's on page 8 for 104,000, that's just materials then that the social workers and counselors will be using with the students then?
I'm going to have to defer to Mallory on that. I'm not 100% sure.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Elder. So what we're doing right now is we're adjusting that budget around. So the DOH grant is going to be only for salaries and benefits. We had some funding from last year, so there will be nothing in the supply item. Right now, we were doing some budget transfers on that.
Okay, so that'll just show up, Ms. Marin, that'll just show up later then, correct?
That is correct, Board Member Muir-Aragon. We present to you for approval 100% of our budget transfers.
Okay, great. And then for the Star-Based La Luz all of that, looks like that's all going to student travel. And so I think that's a wonderful thing, giving our students time for some really phenomenal experiences. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
I'll move for approval. This is Barbara.
I'll second. This is Peggy.
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, if I could have a roll call vote.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is item D, consideration for approval of intra-function transfers for grant budget for the month of July 2022. This is also a discussion action item. And Ms. Marin, I will pass it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board, presenting for your consideration of approval the intra-function transfers for grant management for the month of July 2022. It is mostly corrections to the initial budget or taking steps to align the budget with beginning of the school year identified needs or with state mandated changes in order to complete an approved application. Other than that, I did not see anything out of the ordinary, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marin. Once again, I will open it up for discussion or questions. If there's not any, if I could get a motion.
I had one. I'm waiting for everybody else. So on page, I don't know, Miss Marin, maybe on page 117 of the digital packet, on the first justification, it has distributing budget to support the Alliance for Leading and Learning initiative. So if you could refresh my memory about what it was, I went and I looked everything up, and the only thing I found was in the UK. And so I was like, well, that probably can't be it. So
Board member Mueller Aragon, it is the new name or I'm not sure the process it went exactly through, but it is the new name of an existing initiative. And it used to be what was called the NAPS program. It is our leaders training initiative under which they are undergoing they're taking additional courses and classes and promoting us having access to valuable, highly educated leadership.
Okay, I know that superintendent was trying to.
I'm sorry, I tried to.
Okay.
I interrupted. It was my fault. I was polite. Sorry, Mahela. It's our budding principal program. When we're trying to build our own from our internal ranks. You may remember it from years past being run by Sharon Olguin. Now it's being run by Anne Marie Strangio. That's why we have added an assistant principal component to that as well. So people that are assistant principals can get some support on how to be an effective assistant principal to move forward. And it's been good because those people come in, they take the jobs and they stay.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll hear more about it. Anne Marie's a blast to listen to, so that will be fun to have her give a presentation on how that's working. And I think it's important to get our assistant principals some help. And then the last one I have on page 119 of the digital on, I know it's just aligning the end of the year budget, and there's 20,000 for professional development. So what was that professional development? I know it was taken out of other contract services and put into professional development. And how many staff did that 20,000, how many staff participated in that professional development?
Board member Mueller Aragon, I do not have the entire details at my fingertips, but I would love to follow the documentation and follow up with you on that.
Okay, that'd be good. Just $20,000. I mean, it'd be nice to know what it was used for, moved from and used for, and how many people got some support from that PD. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further questions?
Just one little follow-up to that. Maybe at one of the soon coming up instruction and accountability meetings, we could get sort of an overview of the different principal and leadership development programs that are going on, just so we have sort of a snapshot. I think the commitment to that is really good, timely, important, and it would help us, I think, to have just an overview of what's happening.
Thank you. If we don't have further discussion, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved. This is Barbara.
I'll second. Yolanda?
Thank you, Ms. Yeager. If I can have a roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is item E, consideration for approval of fiscal year 2023 interfunction transfers for all non-categorical funds for the month of July 2022. This is a discussion action item as well, and I will turn it over to Ms. Hicks. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Elder. As indicated, this action discussion item is requesting your approval of the inter-function transfers for non-categorical funds for the month of July. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary this month, and so I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Once again, I will open it up to the board for any questions or comments. Board Member Murata, go on.
I'll wait.
You're good. Go ahead.
So on page 124 of the digital, it has a $59,332 going to other contract services, and the justification says to increase the HR budget to assess compensation policies and procedures. That's a lot to approve to do that. Is that an FTE? Is that going to be another person at the 59,332? I would understand if that's what it was, but.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Superintendent Elder, no, ma'am, that is not going to be an FTE. That is going to be a contract. It's a contract for services. And if Mr. Torgerson is still here, I would love for him to pop in and talk about those services from REDW.
Yes, I am still here. Thank you, Julianne. When actually Julianne, Rosalinda, and Ms. Coleman are part of the Personnel Action Committee. And what the committee has decided to do is to move forward with a third party to review all of the district support compensation schema and come up with metrics and a means to, in a sense, calibrate and better place the district salary schedule in the marketplace.
Okay, so you've already chosen, Mr. Torgerson, you've already chosen that third party that's going to be doing this?
Yes, we have.
Okay, and so how long is it going to take for them to go through all of those policies and procedures?
So the scope of work, at least right now, is done in phases. So we're looking at phase 1 for 1 year, and it'll be evaluated on a case-by-case basis going forward.
Okay. So it's likely at least to last for a year, and it could go beyond that.
I suspect it'll go beyond that. We're looking for a very comprehensive study, and quite frankly, we've had some significant issues with respect to recruiting and retaining folks based on the salary schedule for district support. And so that continues to be a pinch point for us. And you've seen it certainly in IT, you see it in capital fiscal, you see it here in other departments in M&O as well, that salary schedule has been fixed over a period of time, has not been adjusted for inflation as it's been going forward. So we're looking to look at this on a more comprehensive basis.
When was the last time it was looked at?
Well, 2016, there was a study that was done.
Did anything come of that?
There were some adjustments made to folks in that salary review that was done at that time. So yes, but the components of the salary schedule and fixing the job descriptions was not. So that's part of this component.
Okay,
That
well,
also was a third party as well.
okay, well, obviously we need to adjust higher so we can get people to want to work at APS. Hey, it's a good place to be. So that will be good. I hope something good comes of it and we can get more people to work for APS. And then this is just more a comment than anything. And just because of hearing from some computer tech teachers, I know at E.G. Ross that one of the at-risk budget, and schools know what's best for them. And I always think they're the ones that should make the decision. But I know that it was the at-risk budget is funding an EA position and instead of the computer tech. So I just always going to be concerned about that, since we really do need to have somebody there when we have one-to-one devices for all of our kids. And so that's just concerning to me. But I know schools know what's best for them. I'm just going to worry about those devices and getting them, fixed if they need to be. And a lot of times a computer tech teacher is able to do it without it having to leave the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further discussion or questions? I would like to ask for a motion.
So moved. This is Peggy.
I'll second. Josefina.
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, if I have a roll call vote.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is item F, consideration for approval of fiscal year 2023 intra-function transfers for all non-categorical funds for the month of July 2022. This is a discussion action item, and Ms. Hicks, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Elder. This action item, as indicated, we are requesting your approval for the fiscal year 2023 intra-function transfers for all non-categorical funds for the month of July. This one, you can see that there were 30 pages of budget transfers, which is quite a bit of activity. And what I wanted to do was just echo something that Ms. Marin mentioned in her transfers. We had quite a few PED-driven changes this year to our uniform chart of accounts and some other things, and it made it very challenging to get our budget uploaded into the state's operating system on time. We made that deadline and we did what we needed to do, but now what we're doing is we're aligning our budget to where it needs to be with respect to the accounting. None of these really reflect any program changes. They're really just aligning the budget and putting it in the buckets that they need to be so that we're in alignment with the state system, if that makes sense. And other than that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Do we have any questions or discussion? No questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved. This is Courtney. Oh, were you talking?
You go ahead.
Sorry. So moved. This is Courtney. I will second. This is Danielle.
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, if I have a roll call, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is item G, consideration for approval of budget adjustment to operational funds in the amount of $13,682,700. This is a discussion action item. And Ms. Hicks, you are still our rock star for the moment. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Elder. This action item is asking you for approval to adjust our budget in the operational fund in the amount of $13.7 million. This is the $13 million that we set aside in the budget that we knew about even when we were presenting the budget to you guys. this hopefully is not going to come as a surprise because we set it aside, and that was in a number of our presentations. This is the 3% incentive pay for folks to work at our ELTP schools. And we knew that our participation was going to be 29 schools instead of district-wide. And so this is just the follow-up to that action to give the money back to PED that we had anticipated giving back when we presented the budget to you. And unless there are any questions, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. And yes, I remember clearly when you all explained it and you had it itemized specifically to the penny how much we would have to return from the ELTP money. So I was very sad, but I understand. So do we have any other further questions or comments on this?
I move for approval.
I'll second. This is Barbara.
Sadly.
Sadly, yes. Thank you. Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call vote?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller-Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration action is item H, consideration for approval of gifts, grants, and donations for more than $5,000. This is a discussion action item, always exciting here. And we have Mr. Mark Turnbull, our Executive Director of Accounting. You have, and I don't, Miss Amanda Boyle is taking over, I believe. Yes. Okay, Miss Boyle, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm going to stand in for Mr. Turnbull. For this item, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Elder, the requested action is for consideration for approval of gifts, grants, and donations of more than $5,000. The items for request this month are the donation of outside tables with the fair market value of $8,241.50 to Manzano Mesa Elementary School from Exerplay Inc. And we have a grant of $5,000 to Cochiti Elementary School from the George W. Bush Foundation for library items. We have a donation of $10,000 to the Title I Homeless Project from Kroger to purchase food for the kids. And finally, the donation of $10,000 to Rio Grande High School from Rotary South Valley Charities for the purchase of various student athletic equipment, incentives, and fees. And I can stand for any questions.
Thank you. And just for clarification, because I had asked about the initial one for $8,200, it was delayed on shipping way beyond the date that they were expected, and the manufacturer just decided to write those off, and they gifted those to APS.
Oh, nice.
So that was a nice, and then the others were grants that each organization applied for. So do we have any further discussion or questions on this item?
Just that I know Ms. Dixon and the rest of the Manzano Mesa community is delighted.
Yeah.
And so thank you very much for all of these.
Yes. I mean, I do. I think it's wonderful. And I'm looking at the Rotary, the South Valley Rotary charities, and, you know, what they're doing for Rio Grande and having to pay for tournaments using that money. We shouldn't ever have to do, kids shouldn't have to do that. I mean, that should just be paid for. We're public schools, and there are some schools that are not going to have this kind of a donation, and that is just a shame to me. But thank you to all of people who donated. We appreciate it. I move for approval.
I'll second. Yolanda?
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller-Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is item I, which is consideration for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for moving services and supplies as needed. This is a discussion action item, and Ms. Apodaca, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, Superintendent Elder. The next action memo for consideration is approval on the purchase of moving services and supplies as needed. This purchase is in accordance with the State of New Mexico Procurement Code and APS procurement policy. The selected vendors, there's 2 of them, were successful through the invitation to bid process. We are estimating purchases for a 5-year contract of 1.2 million using capital and operational funds. In your packet, there is a board report with the vendor's information, a link to the invitation to bid, and also each task order or assignment for this contract will have its own scope, its own deliverable, its own cost. And we have the previous spend, 1.2 million, and we're remaining flat and estimating again 1.2 million for the future. And then we have the bid tabulation, and we have Ms. Alred for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. I will open it up to the board. We could see that these companies get paid really well. You know, but if anyone has any questions or comments? None at this time. May I have a motion?
I'll move for approval. This is Peggy.
I'll second and consider becoming a forklift
Right.
driver.
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is item J, which is consideration for approval of district purchase or expenditure that it equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for managed print services. This is also a discussion action item, and Ms. Apodaca, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Elder. The next action memo for consideration is approval of purchase of managed print services. In accordance with the State of New Mexico Procurement Code and APS procurement policy, we are using a cooperative contract to work with Xerox Corporation. This estimated is for this fiscal year at $730,000. We did put in your packet a copy of the contract, and we should have Mr. Witjenje and Mr. Martinez available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. Do we have any questions or discussion on this?
I just have one quick question. So just kind of refresh, what does managed print services mean?
Okay, there he is, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Managed Print Services is a program that we run out of the graphics shop that manages all print hardware, software, usage, and expenses, and consolidates it to drive efficiency and delivery to the schools.
So are print services then just centralized, or they can print at the school level?
There's both. So we have a print shop that handles larger jobs for the schools, so such as curriculum, and then we also have printers and copiers that are managed through our department, and the schools have usage of those.
Okay. And so they're being billed against that 730,000 as the estimated bill. So are they're paying towards that with their school budgets, or is this just cover all of that? That's what I was curious about.
This covers the larger shop expense. The schools are not billed for those expenses.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Board Member Dominguez, did you have a question?
I was just curious about the, this contract that you've included is dated 2011? Well, 16. The form is 2011 and the signature is, so has anything changed in the contract?
Nothing has changed as far as costs. The only variable is usage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board Member Jackson.
So does that mean that the last time that this was signed was 2016 and we're going to get an updated contract with 2022 signatures?
Renette, I'll let you answer that question.
Board Member Jackson, Madam Chair, Board Member Superintendent Elder, it is good for 60 months depending on each machine. So each machine will have it's lease term. So we will have to look at each individual machine to make sure if we need to update it, we definitely do the renewals. Because there's different machines under this Xerox that Jerome has at his shop, and one might have come in earlier than another one, so they all have their individual terms.
So this contract that you included in the board packet is just representative of the contract, and you're saying each machine has its own individual contract?
Correct. This is like a master agreement, and then depending when they get their machines, that's where we start that specific machine's term.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Madam Chair. So I know then you're saying that schools have, then each school has their own printing budget, correct?
So each school has allocation of copiers and printers, and they actually don't pay for those. So there's no expenses to the schools.
Okay. I just remember running out of paper, and then we couldn't print, or we had to print it and pay for it ourselves. So I remember that happening. That should not happen, but it does happen, and teachers shouldn't have to pay for that.
Well, Board Member Mueller-Aragon, you may remember the very bad contract we had for this. When we actually somehow ended up in a contract that limit the number of copies, and it did limit the number of printers we were allowed to have on campuses. And we had teachers, say our high schools, would have to walk a quarter of a mile just to get copies. And that lasted about 6 months before we said we were renegotiating. And so the new contract is, and Jerome and Casita do a nice job of managing it. Schools have they have printers. I'm sure they'd like more. Copiers break, but but it's a much better system than what we were in. As far as paper order, the schools do control that, and there was, as a principal, there were a few things that we always advise them not to run out of them. Copy paper being one, toilet paper being another. And so cleaning supplies these days, there's just things like you really got to keep an eye on. So there is a budget that may not be necessarily directly related to printing, but it does come out of school budget for some of the supplies to allow these things to happen.
And then, if I heard you correctly, then this 730,000 has just been pretty stable. So that's what it's been over the last, since 2016, 17.
Right. And I'm sorry, the only variable will be for usage, and there is not very much variation on usage.
Okay. So then we're going to say that usage hasn't gone down in the last several years. So then my question would be, what happened then during the pandemic when the schools were all remote, or they weren't in school at all? What happened to the usage then?
So again,
730,000?
this amount is only for the print shop, for the larger shop. There's a whole separate amount for the schools. So as far as the school usage, there really was not any school usage during the pandemic.
Right. So I understand that this is only for large, right? I mean, you've
Yes, ma'am.
said that. So that usage did not change during the pandemic then.
So at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a demand for curriculums, and there was a large spike at that point. We had to print a lot of curriculum and deliver it to schools so it could be distributed to children so they could learn at home before all the digital learning came into place. So that's why the usage really didn't change at that point. I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I just thought that there would be some kind of a change in usage just when schools were closed or when they were in remote. So I thought that they would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further questions? Any further? Any questions?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you.
I'll second. I'll second first.
I'll second first.
Ms. Danielle second. Ms. Yeager, if I can have a roll call, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is item K, consideration for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for ancillary services as needed. This is a discussion action item, and Ms. Apodaca, back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board Member, Superintendent Elder. The next action memo for consideration are ancillary services as needed for our special education department. In your action memo, you will see the different services that are requested, and the selected vendor is Cooperative Education Services, also known as CES. We did put the link there for you to be able to look at. And the estimated is 2.4 million annually. And we are looking for approval for 3 years, 7.2 million using operational funds. And we do have Ms. Outler here for any questions.
Thank you. I will open it up to the board for any discussion or questions.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. 2 questions. The first one is, how is the 2.4 million reached? Is it just based on the numbers of these folks that are listed here?
So currently we allocate the FTEs and funds depending on the student needs. So it goes for speech language services, occupational therapy, social workers. So the CES rates are a little bit different from our APS rates, but they help us to fill the vacancies to support students.
And so I guess, how are we determining how many are needed? How do we determine student need?
Student needs based off the student IEPs. So in each IEP, students are given ancillary services under IDEA, and that determines the service minutes ranging from 10 minutes all the way up to 90 minutes per week, individualized for students.
And so that's from prior year IEPs then?
From each year, yes.
Okay, and then my second question was, how does this amount, the 2.4 million, relate to prior spend?
Ms. Apodaca, do you have the information for prior years?
We actually use CES for numerous types of purchases. So we're not able to just take out the special ed. We would have to depend on your department to see kind of what your historical spend is, because in the procurement side, since we use them for all kinds, it is all together.
So that's information that I can get for you to look at historically what it's been through the years.
Thank you. I guess, and just because these services, these staff are critically important, obviously for special education, but just acknowledging the increase in behavioral challenges, BIPs and that type of work, just want to make sure that we're allocating sufficient funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further questions?
I have one. I think Board Member Jackson had one too.
Board member?
How many staff do you think we are short that under ideal circumstances, if we could find the people to hire, how many additional ancillary folks should we have without?
So right now we have 58 vacancies for ancillary staff.
So that's something that hopefully between partnering with UNM and the improved salary schedule and all of those things, hopefully we can get some of them on board. Just because, I mean, it seems like from year to year, there may be fluctuations in need based on IEPs. So there may be times when we have to contract out just because it doesn't make sense to hire a full-time person. But I'll bet most of those 58 folks we could use as permanent staff.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just had to, if we could just kind of, Miss Atler, just kind of get an idea. I know what Member Peterson said. Of course, there's like fluctuations. We don't know. One year we may need, however many OTs, and then the next year we don't need as many. So it'd be good to give us an idea about historically how many OTs we had one year, and then the next year how many social workers we needed, et cetera. I think that would just be helpful to us to kind of see the history of how things may go up and down. And it'd be interesting to see what looks different now after, as Member Gonzalez said, after the pandemic, with what really looks different. And I think that's always very helpful to know. And then when it comes to salaries, are they pretty comparable to APS employees? I know the answer is probably going to be, I already know the answer, but I just want everybody to hear that they're not comparable. And how much of a difference is there really? I mean, if we don't do something to try to get some of those salaries up, why would anybody want to come and work for APS instead of getting paid more working where they are?
Board Member Aragon, yes. So CES is not a public agency, and so they don't have to pay into ERB or retirement. So they are able to offer more upfront salary, and than we can here at APS.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And I mean, I do understand if you work for, if you work for APS, in the end, you feel, I mean, I feel better because I have a pension now. So sometimes you just work for, the end, but I just think we can do something to try to make those salaries come up a bit. I feel like we can, and I think it's worth it for the kids. So thank you, Ms. Atler.
Thank you, ma'am.
Board Member Aragon, that's the compensation study that we discussed earlier.
Right.
And I just want to add that also from like the workforce perspective, part of the issue is that there's like a tremendous amount of competition because especially when I'm looking at like the medical side of these pieces where nursing, speech language pathologists, and psychologists, there's a tremendous amount of competition on that. And so I would venture to guess that CES probably also has difficulty filling those because what they're filling them with are a lot of individuals who are retired and who are okay at sort of like this traveling nurse kind of role or this traveling piece. But just based on what we're seeing with just labor market information, all of those positions are in demand and just not being produced at great rates in New Mexico. And we definitely have a shortage of all of those.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions or comments?
I'll move for approval. This is Peggy.
I'll second. This is Josefina.
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is item L, which is consideration for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for New Mexico produce. This is a discussion action item, and Ms. Apodaca, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair, Board Member, Superintendent Elder. The next action memo for approval is purchase of New Mexico produce. An invitation to bid was issued in accordance with the procurement code. We did pick 7 different vendors. The estimated purchase is $400,000 for a 1-year agreement, and we do use federal funds. Ms. Kemp was maybe on the call for questions. We do have a board report that has the 7 different vendors and their information, also a link to the invitation to bid, also the bid tabulation, and then the previous spend, and then the future spend.
Thank you. I will go ahead and open it up for any questions or comments.
Go fresh produce
Yeah.
from local growers. I think that's awesome.
And in that spirit, I'll move for approval.
Well, I have a question.
Board Member
about-
Dominguez?
I was excited to see, organics on this list. And I wonder how, sometimes local farmers can't list their products as organics because it requires federal approval and whatnot, but they make a commitment to doing things organically. Are any of our vendors in line with that? Do we know?
Any vendor that sells food to the schools has to be approved by the USDA. So any certification is going to be dependent on their ability to meet the federal guidelines for food. And that's always been an issue for some of our local growers, but we're seeing more and more of them develop the ability to do that, because a lot of it has to do with tracking the food. Like we have to know where this apple came from in case there's an issue, and it has to be pretty specific. So any certifications they're going to claim in their application has to meet the federal requirement. And I will tell you that when we do procurement and we go out and talk, and we've been involved with a group called Healthy Neighborhoods Albuquerque over the years, and one of the first initiatives was trying to increase the amount of carrots that were being sold, because some of the things New Mexico growers are good. Well, that's what they grow. I mean, they grow radishes really well. They grow carrots really well. Now they've expanded. At that time, we looked at how many carrots we could buy. We were able to bump it up a little bit, but it was mostly UNMH that began stocking their salad bars, and Presbyterian that began stocking their salad bars with local produce. So we continue to encourage the local growers to figure out how to meet USDA, and we buy it when we can. The problem for the local growers with us is when we buy everything. We take everything, and they have to be able to continually supply it. So a lot of times they have to work with other agencies, and then we end up buying it from the second party. But there you go.
Hence the Agricultura Network, perhaps. I don't know. And I'm glad to see South Valley represented here.
Yeah, we try very hard to work with local growers as much as we can. It's very important for Ms. Kemp over in Food and Nutrition Services. The more food we can get out, like fruits and vegetables that we can put in the kids' hand, it's great. And you'll see it out at school. Sometimes they have little baskets, and they can take a piece of fruit that's locally grown.
I just have a quick question, Superintendent. Do we do any, sort of just communication or sharing with our families that, hey, we're serving we're serving locally grown food, or do we just do anything to promote
I think it's
promote it?
done at the school level, and I
Okay.
do know that some of the schools are more excited about promoting that than others. And it's, like I said, it's interesting because you've got the school gardens, and people always want to put the food from the school gardens in the cafeteria, and there's issues with that because you got to meet USDA guidelines, and so it's a little bit different. But I do think people are aware, whether we've got a very active, social media campaign promoting local food being used, I don't know, because ultimately, while there's $400,000 is great, that goes pretty quick.
Right.
So,
Okay, thank you.
And just one more request. In the future, not right away, it'd be nice to see how a pie graph to see how our local farmers are enjoying a portion of our business. Nothing right away, urgent, just next year.
We can do that. It's
Okay.
Have our
small.
farmers come and tell us thank you, I guess. I don't know.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion because I think we just had a motion. So I'll second, and we'll also say I just really appreciate the precision as far as apple sizes.
Thank you. Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova. Yes. Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is item M, consideration for approval of cash disbursements for July of 2022. This is discussion action, and Ms. Apodaca, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair, Board Members, Superintendent Elder. The next action memo for consideration of cash disbursements for July 2022. PSAB Supplement 7 requires that a summary of the vouchers be presented to the local school board at its next regular meeting, and this meets those requirements.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on the expenditures?
No, I know I had just asked some questions and I don't have them with me before about some of them, and I don't believe I've gotten them unless I missed it somewhere. But that would have been from last month. I'll move for approval.
Well, I have a question.
Yes, Board Member Dominguez.
So, I'm just struck by, when you say cash disbursements, I guess I need clarification because we've got millions going to Bradbury Stam Construction, and then, I thought 214,000 for an insurance company was a lot until I looked at the construction budgets or cash disbursements. So, yeah, could you explain? Do we approve and then we've approved those items and they get? I'm a little confused about invoices and cash disbursements.
Okay, Board Member, Madam Chair, Superintendent Elder, these cash disbursements is actually like the check register. So you will see the check numbers and the vendor and the amount issued. So these are actually checks that have already gone out in the month of July to these vendors for those amounts. Some of these, like if they have multiple invoices, they could be all paid on one check. So it might not necessarily be one specific invoice, but we could pay multiple in order to pay them all at once.
Okay. That's a big check. So, I'll second the motion to approve if no one else has comments or questions.
Thank you. And you'll bring attention to, you'll notice our attorney fees are significantly lower than usual, but I'm sure next month it's going to be a pretty penny considering we've had lots of discussions with them and they probably did not get an invoice to us in time why they're so low. So without any other further questions, Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. And my only request going forward to the board for our next finance meeting would be if we do have some pressing questions when we receive our board packets, if you can send me your questions no later than Tuesday morning so I could send this out to the finance team and make sure that they could research this in its entirety so they don't have to research it later and they could be prepared to get us the answers that are needed at the time of our board meeting, if at all possible. So thank you. So our next finance committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 at 5:15 p.m. in the John Milne Community Boardroom of the Allison Bruce King Educational Complex at 6400 Uptown Boulevard Northeast, or virtually at www.aps.edu. So the meeting will be adjourned and it will be now followed by a special board meeting.
Okay, so before I do that, does anyone need a break? Are we good? Okay, so before we get started, let's just take a quick 5 Okay, thank you. I'll go
Two
run.
meetings in an hour.
Look at that. That's record, right? 2 meetings in an hour.
Nicely done, Chair.
So are we ready to go? You gonna count me in or?
Yeah, we'll count you in.
Okay.
Mr. Gonzalez, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead, please.
So welcome to the Board of Education Special Board Meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. And Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Danielle Gonzalez,
Here.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes, here.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Here.
Josefina Dominguez,
Here?
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Here.
Courtney Jackson,
Here.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Here. So our first item for consideration and action is adoption of the August 24, 2022 Special Board of Education meeting agenda. And so I don't think we had anything that we were going to pull off consent, so I think we're good. So may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second, this is Courtney.
Have a roll call, please.
And I'm sorry, was that Board Member Gonzalez who made the motion?
Yes.
Was it?
The same exact time.
Same time.
You guys are like plugged in.
I'm gonna have to start flipping coins over there, guys.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes?
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. So we're going to move on to special issues, and our next item for consideration and action is presentation of the professional services agreement regarding the governance, training, and support from the Council of the Great Cities Schools. And gosh, my packet is a mess. So if you recall, we are entering into an agreement with the Council of Great City Schools to support us for the governance training, the retreat that we're getting ready to go into. And we had agreed that we would use some of our funds that we had within our board services pieces that we have set aside for ourselves on our professional development. The agreement is a requirement from the Council of Great City Schools. And it talks about the costs to the district for the services and expenses. And I don't know, Ms. Yeager, if you want to add anything else to that, where we pretty much have settled in with them on the pieces that they would provide. So it's compensation for that initial leadership training and support, compensation for additional leadership and training. And this is just as needed, so we can call that into play. Compensation for coaching support and subject matter experts. So as we're finishing that, and if we need to call on them to support the pieces that we're doing after they come and do the retreat with us and the pieces that we need, they would charge us at $150 per hour, whichever is less. And those would probably just be very brief coaching calls, but have the opportunity to connect with them so that they could provide some additional guidance as we're going. And then some travel expenses that would be related for them to travel. And I believe for this first retreat, there's going to be 2 individuals that will be coming. So we've got Mr. Crabhill and I can't remember her name, Cindy, also with the Council of Great City Schools that will be here to lead the retreat. So the way that this works is we're agreeing to engage with them. If you go on to the Council of Great City Schools and you look at their materials, there's a section in there that focuses on setting up like a board governance piece where it talks about guardrails, setting their priorities. It's very much just following that plan. And board member Gonzalez she had prefaced that several months ago. I know we've all had a chance to look at it. And so that's the product we're working towards. So it helps us to understand how we use our time, how to make our time more efficient with our meetings, which is one of the things that we have set for ourselves, but also making sure that we're setting the guardrails, sort of talking about those pieces that we want to share with the district. And this will all go in alignment with the strategic planning and the visioning that we're doing at that point as well. So I don't know, Ms. Yeager, do you want to add anything else?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Elder, the only thing that I would add is that we wanted to bring the professional services agreement before you, just so you could be clear about the commitment that you're making. Because if you stick to the timeline that you set up originally or for the first time, then we would pay that one-time fee rather than the hourly fee for hours worked. And it's a big, big difference. So we just wanted to make you aware that the commitment is real that you're making.
And so with that, I'll just open it up for discussion. Any questions, concerns?
No, I really enjoyed the timeline and really being able to see like the sample that was submitted and even the redesign that, is possibly suggested going forward. So I'm looking forward to it and I'm ready to commit.
Thank you. Any other comments? We certainly won't be the first board that's going through this. So they have a package, they've got it streamlined. So we're just engaging with something that they've developed for boards, especially like ours with, large districts. And so it seems like it's really a good commitment on our side. All right, any other discussion? So this is not set up for action, so it's just discussion.
No, Madam President, the board actually already has made the commitment. So we just wanted, since we have the professional services agreement, we just wanted you to see it.
Okay. Any others?
A lot of money and it's a good investment. We need it.
It's investment in ourselves. Definitely need to do that for ourselves too. All right. So our next item is approval of consent calendar items. So consideration for approval of the August 24, 2022 finance matters. And this is also a discussion action. Do I have a motion?
So moved. This is Courtney.
This is Crystal. I will second.
I have a roll call, please.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. So our next item is consideration for approval to convene an executive session pursuant to NMSA 1978 10-15 1H5 for the purpose of discussing bargaining strategy to collective bargaining negotiations between APS bargaining unit representing APS employees. And this is discussion action. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. This is Barbara.
Second, Josefina.
And before we go in, I just, on a point of personal privilege, just have something quick to say. First and foremost, I'm here to tell all of our staff, our teachers who work hard for our students and put them first, that you are valued. You are valued by me. The legislature saw fit to give all teachers a $10,000 raise, which in my opinion is clearly not enough for those exceptional teachers, but still it was a raise that was embraced by everyone, including the taxpayers who are going to pay for these raises. The legislature passed the legislation to give those raises. It's statutory, and the board with a majority vote passed our budget, and I voted yes. That budget included money for all raises, even those that went beyond just our teachers, counselors, social workers, et cetera. Our budget was then approved by PED, and our employees are receiving their raises. So for anyone who is putting out disinformation that can impugn my integrity, saying this board member does not want these deserved raises to be given, may not be giving out all the information that shows we already approved these raises through our budget process. Our budget is an agreement that says we fund what we value, and that is not just our teachers, but all of our employees. To be perfectly transparent to everyone, I personally asked for an MOU to be drafted as added security to ensure that while we are what the journal said that the union declared an impasse, that I wanted to make sure that our valued employees would get their raises. That request was sent to the superintendent and to our president. And I have not recalled hearing during any board meeting or during the budget process that raises were an issue with me. I want all of our teachers and instructional support staff to continue getting their raises. Since seems to be left out to dry, APS had a lawyer representing them. We, the board, did not. And anyone out there who thinks that's okay for one party to have representation and not the other, and the other being the people's representatives, you, the people, were left without legal representation. And you, the people, are also not at the bargaining table. I don't know if that's okay with anyone. It isn't okay with me, but I just wanted to make sure that you all know that I, of course, wanted everyone to keep their raises and continue getting them. Thank you.
Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please? Wait, did I get a motion? Yes, may I have a roll call, please?
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Peggy Mueller-Aragon,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. So for all those people that are not part of the executive session, they need to leave so that we can, we'll just wait till everybody leaves the room and who's not part of it, and then we'll resume.